It's working over there. It's working in the wrong way. Sure, it's like this. Adopt and say it's not going to be effective. And give y'all time to train and get smart as everybody else. But you get the comedian of the attitude. I mean, if it's working, you'll never get through. Tom's gonna, they might even think to me,
strong, brought into it.
If it's been working,
it's masterful. I'm watching it because
then we'll come over and say, wait, there's some fun road. It's working. So let's adopt it.
And he's going to another chapter. He's looking for someone else to change his word and a twist in a certain way, spin it a certain way that gets those forth which lures in rapper.
He'll never get back.
So it's like and so it's a tactic of a strategy, a great strategy. All the shit they agreed had a handshake of 5 council members to change the meeting time. Alright? But they brought it up, they proposed it, made it look like it said the vote because 2 were opposed to it. They withdrew. Well, it would have already passed. You already had it. Why would you just move the damn vehicle? Like you said, you would.
They're paying today.
And see how it was.
Hey, that makes sense. You know what? Hey, listen to this.
Because you didn't really want to move the meeting time. You just hit the pin and say you want to shake my hand 3 months ago. Say you can do it.
You gotta have it in there.
They all can. That's their job. That's how they got elected.
You gotta have it in the city.
Big fat panda.
Is it on there?
No.
Everybody can figure it
Y'all write it up and send it up there. All you have to do is just tell me this what you know. Well, it's just like make it sense. Send it up there.
I'll bring it.
Tanya's my right hand assistant. She know everything.
Bring her a copy tomorrow.
Yeah, and email.
I'm gonna send you an email.
Send it to her.
No, Tony. I make up real good.
John, I passed the church. Business. Two things. One you send to a committee, one you table it, it's gonna be table for you. Yeah.
It's just like the UNC adopted, and then if you run the glitches,
Don't put a bullet in there. That's what they're doing there. So frustrated with this. Doing anything we can to pivot things that are good, things that are positive, economic impacts on the city.
What you know? Anything good?
Consensus, antiquated ideology. We don't agree with it. People that correlate alcohol to criminal as generations go.
Oh, you still want to continue?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, what you think? It's perfect.
I'm not gonna stay long. Oh, okay.
While not together, that may share the same similar products, but not the same business model. You know, and what I'm thinking with that, unless friends or someone you know or local supporters may own those businesses that then take a big advantage of it. It's the weirdest thing ever, right? You would think this stuff would be on television. What's that? That's the one where you can actually act out what it says in the chart now.
All over here.
Okay. Until it's done. So how quickly will they be able to act? So kind of like a car for parking in the yard type thing.
You know how she do.
So they'll be able to just walk in there and be like,
Oh, that's right.
I see your sign.
Suggested, or administrative denial.
Administrative.
Back to you.
Why?
I hadn't read it yet.
Hey, how are you doing?
Focus on the how.
Just see we made changes to
You know what I
that.
mean? First and foremost, we got so
Yeah,
many.
so it's gonna go down
We can
some.
start pushing them out before sending.
2 times it's still gonna go up Erie, cause we gotta hit the VA. So the rest of the times it only pay on Sunday.
I appreciate y'all so much. Is that one late night when they're working? Is it gonna go late night?
So, we'll do.
Yes, sir. Thanks for asking. How about you?
That's good. That's good. They just need to get home because they work late down here. They're trying to get back. I appreciate that so much.
You're gonna love this. You know,
I didn't get to.
I
write
actually
back
celebrate
because
the 19th
love
of
this
June.
being normal.
I was raised in Bell.
What's there? Is that right there?
So that started.
So the 4th is like a work day. You know, we had to chop cotton. My grandma would make us go out there. And she'd have a big deal on the 19th of June. 4th of June. Yeah.
No, we put it on Facebook and we posted it
Well,
at the terminal.
When she goes smart, but I don't know if you
Well, you know, I work everywhere.
I know you did.
y'all are the best.
Every weekend, every day, man. You know? But I'm thinking.
And instead, we less than
Yeah, that's
30%
good.
of the houses.
I've had that one for 42 years.
It should be the other way around. We should have 70%. If not,
Good, how are you?
Yeah, for 42 years I've had that one.
Good deal I'm thinking about. Pay raise.
We gotta get Keith to put. Well, because he's sitting in after the fact, and I don't know if that's when he came up here drawing because he couldn't, and you don't want to meet him already started. But I do know the top. Is Mr. Flurry not here today? He is. He's coming valid.
Yes, sir. You talking about over there?
James Flurry.
Yeah, yeah.
I think he's coming back from somewhere, but he should be
Yeah, he
here.
was in he was going out of town.
Okay, Councilman Nicholson, do us a favor and plug this in.
Then I got an email. This is John's district. It's like right on the whole food. They put them straight.
See why I couldn't do that?
And they're into the tree. I mean, it's like the trees are growing and have
Graceful enough.
It's like 4 inches in. It's growing around the. And I said, I don't know if it's really property standards issue, but it looks like.
Oh, we want to do.
on the MPC. Let me see if I got a picture of this real quick.
My people, I ain't gonna be able to vote for another fee right now. Ain't no sense in me saying at this point in time.
You are here. I was getting worried. Oh no, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I don't know where we're at. Well, how you doing?
Good.
How the family reunion went?
Oh, it went fine, man. Yes, sir. Thanks for asking. Didn't have nobody to cut up.
Nobody cut up?
Nobody.
Hey. So you wish we got yesterday?
Y'all got
No,
emails.
man, them Negroes went home or went somewhere.
Which one?
I had one of my cousins came.
Third? Is that South Carolina?
And that was it.
You save it for myself on the email?
That was it.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
I did the meet and greet at my at the ranch, and
Hey, brother. Well, how you doing?
and so
Hi, Mr. Glover.
that's what I did.
Sarah. How are you, Sarah?
So it came out.
Hi, Sarah.
We had a great time. They ate and got full. Oh yeah,
I am
she was
too.
on her best behavior.
I am too, Sarah.
That's what I was.
You okay, baby?
That's what I was
Good.
worried about.
I'm good. I know that wasn't what they were expecting, but it's what they're gonna get.
I don't know about like it is, but
She see.
yeah. Hey, listen, you and Tori got that waterway committee deal. Ron Latier said, call
That's for the
me.
best.
Oh, guys said,
I'm not gonna.
No.
Thank you.
right, so he said, you know, nobody gets something.
Rhino, I'm gonna bring you one next time. You tell me you like it. All right, you got it. He said, you got it. Tomorrow I'm on duty.
Good afternoon. Well, I just had a ring.
I don't know what they're different, but I want you to have what you need.
Oh, somebody.
Maybe you should just call him public comment, not as a
The meeting of the Shreveport City Council has now been called to order. We will have an invocation by the great Councilman Willie Bradford, and our pledge will be led by Councilman Fleury. Stand, please.
Let us pray. Gracious Father, we come again, Lord, thanking you for this day and for this opportunity to come and assemble as the City Council of Shreveport to transact the business of our citizens. As we come, Lord, we ask your presence in this meeting. We ask your directions, Lord, in your favor. Let things that we do here be decent and in order. And Lord, we pray for the mayor, and we pray for these council members. We ask your continued blessings upon them. We pray for our city, the safety and the welfare of our city, Lord. We continue to bless our citizens and also partake of just making this city a great place to live and work. And Lord, when we have finished this meeting, we pray that all that we do here will be pleasing in our sight. It is in thy name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Join women pledge allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Councilman Bradford. Present. Councilwoman Fuller. Councilman Nicholson.
Present.
Councilman Butcher.
Present.
Councilman Fuller.
Present.
Councilman Green.
Here.
And Councilman Bowman.
Here. And tomorrow, I entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the administrative conference from Monday the 24th and Tuesday, June 25th. Does any council member have any awards, recognitions at this particular time?
I will tomorrow.
Councilman Green?
I will tomorrow, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask, it's an agenda item, but I'm still going to ask my friend and colleague on the commission, Mr. Robert Chavez, to come forward, and if you will, Mr. Chavez. I want to recognize him and for his work.
Commissioner Chavez.
Councilman Bradford, thank you. Chairman Jerry Bowman, my favorite councilman James Fleury for the best neighborhood. Hello, Mayor, and I'm not going to leave out my favorite councilwoman. Hey, Lavette, how are you? Greetings, guys. I want to be very brief on the Shreveport Downtown Airport resolution that you guys have on your agenda. I know it's moved to be pushed tomorrow and then voted on. It's just merely a resolution to send to the Red River Waterway Commission to express our interest in a grant. I realize they have funding that they can allocate to our city to better our downtown airport. I know many of you guys have been out there. There's a lot of upgraded needs. I know that would be a true economic driver to our community. I'd love to see the upgraded facade, the landscaping, the common areas, the terminal, and just the vibrant downtown executive airport that we could have here in Shreveport when other outsiders fly in their private jets and look at placing their business in Shreveport and in our downtown airport. I urge you guys to please pass the resolution. It will cost the city of Shreveport no money, and just that we can put in the grant request to the Red River Waterway Commission to upgrade our city. Thank you guys for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Fleury.
may I speak to Commissioner Chavez? The email that you sent me in regard to the loud music and everything, just wanted to let you know that I sent that over to the SPD, and they're in the middle of investigating. They sent me a report back saying that they were looking into it and try to nip it in the bud.
Thank you, Councilman. It's a pleasure working you every day to make Southern Hills better. I appreciate that.
Commissioner Chavez, is the young lady sitting next to you, you know who she is?
Oh, that's my amazing wife and my boss. She's on the agenda to speak, so whenever it's her turn, I will follow protocol and allow her to speak under citizens' comments. So, thank you, Chairman. Thanks for your time, guys.
All right. Any other council member? Mayor Perkins, do you have any awards or distinguished guests at this time?
I do, Mr. Chairman. Earlier this year, council approved funding for a new position within the engineering department. I would like the city engineer to come up to give you an update on that position.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to give you a little status update on the division chief position to assist with the consent decree effort and the sewer projects. We ran the ad twice, and we ran it longer than usual, about a month each time, and we didn't get any candidates. Could be for a number of reasons. That's typical for our engineering positions. So in the past, for our civil engineer 4 positions, when we don't get any candidates, we just run it again and again and again, and it drags on. And I don't think we have the luxury of time to just let this drag on and keep kicking the can down the road. But we did get one application of a very, very appealing, energetic young engineer who I think would be a very good candidate. He's, I won't tell you his name just, because of HR reasons, but he's from Shreveport, went to Southwood, and got an engineering degree from Southern. He's a mechanical engineer and doesn't have much experience with sewer. But the role we're looking at putting him in is not the division chief role, and that's why I want to give you all this update. It would be to support the assistant city engineer. And we would downgrade the position and the salary as appropriate. And I want to remind you, the need for this position wasn't because of the quality or the skill of the assistant city engineer that's overseeing it now. He was just overwhelmed with the workload. So we were shooting for the stars, trying to get somebody with 25, 30 years experience. We're not going to get that. with this salary. I guess you only realize that when you test the water with the advertisement. So I think with this young engineer assisting the assistant city engineer will really be a big help to the city. This young engineer, he's working over in Dallas. He's the type of person that we want to come back to our community and to make our community better and to work here. So another issue with the assistant city engineer that's overseeing the consent decree. Right now, the structure of the program manager consultant and the assistant city engineer, the program team varies from, the number of people. Let's just say it's 40 people. Frequently, not all 40 people, but a lot of those 40 people contact the assistant city engineer directly. If they have questions, if they want advice, if they want a decision, they all contact him, and that just, it's not efficient at all. So that's one thing we've been trying to improve, but we're changing it with the new program manager to where the program team will work up within their chain of command, and the assistant city engineer will really only be communicating with their top person, and that will relieve the assistant city engineer from the day-to-day busy work and allow him to do his true task of actually overseeing it and managing the scope, the budget, and the schedule. So with those two changes, with the change in structure and the addition of this person to aid the assistant city engineer, I think the engineering department is going to be in a much better position to oversee the consent decree work. That's really the update I have. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Vice Chair Nicholson.
Hey, Mr. Furlong, thank you for that update. My recollection is that when the council approved additional funding for this position, the idea was, as you just said, that we would hire an engineer with 25 or 30 years of experience who would be devoted exclusively to managing the consent decree project. Is my memory right about that?
That's right.
From my perspective, it still seems that would be ideal, and I hear you saying that we just haven't had luck recruiting an acceptable candidate who fits that profile. I will say for myself, and I suspect that other members of the council feel the same way, we certainly could increase the compensation offered to this person for this very specific part-time, or not part-time, but short-term role, given that the consent decree project involves spending $100 million a year. So I don't want to, if what you have told us is we need somebody, or ideally would have somebody with 30 years of experience, I don't want you not to be able to get that because you don't have funding for a salary. I will support any reasonable salary to have the right person in place to manage this project.
And I appreciate it, and they're both good approaches and both acceptable approaches. The higher salary with a more experienced engineer, I think we'd be looking very good. With this arrangement, I think we'd be looking very good also. Just looking at numbers, to get somebody with 25, 30 years experience, they would probably by far be the highest paid employee. It probably cost around $250,000 a year, and that's with benefits.
But this is for someone to manage $100 million a year spending, right?
That's correct. But we're investing largely in a program manager to do that. It's a large investment in the program manager, and I feel that with the transparency this program manager is going to present with Burns and McDonnell, the interface that we'll be able to monitor them with, and relieving the assistant city engineer of all the day-to-day tasks that he shouldn't be doing anyways, I feel like we have the skill set in-house to manage it without the 25 to 30 year experienced engineer. I don't object to running an ad, maybe one or two more times, but I'm kind of doubtful. Well, we'd have to find that perfect guy that's looking to close out his career for a temporary position. I'm not saying it can't happen, but it'd be difficult.
Well, and the purpose of my comments is just to say, and I know we all share this sentiment, let's not be penny wise and pound foolish in funding the management of this. We're going to pay Burns and McDonnell $10 million plus a year to do their piece of the management. So whether we pay an in-house engineer $125,000 or $250,000 really is immaterial.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councilman Butcher.
Mr. Furlong, and this is just me thinking out loud, could this position be filled with someone, if we're going to hire an additional engineer, could this position or an assistant that has just experience in doing this type of work that may not be an engineer, could that be a possibility?
They'd have to be the right person. I mean, you are just managing a budget and a schedule, but the projects do get complex and with different types of construction, different techniques, and what you can do with this type of pipe and what you can't do in this construction environment. So you really, I think you do need somebody with that.
With the
engineering and sewer experience.
I just, I mean, and as I was listening to Councilman Nicholson speak, I was thinking to myself, if you found somebody that had been in this industry for quite a while, because from what I understand, this is like one of the largest ones in the nation right now. I would think that there wouldn't be much demand outside of Shreveport right now. If it's the largest one, but I understand what you're saying. I want to make sure we're getting our money's worth. And of course, you're the professional here, and we're here to listen. But I had to ask that question.
Okay.
So thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna yield and go back to last. Councilman Bradford.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and thank you, Mr. Furlong, for that report.
Yes, sir.
In my field, oftentimes we look for people of a quality that will fit within the structure of our system, and sometimes that person is not available or hard to find. So what we do, we get somebody who can get us somewhere until we get from that point to the next point. Get somewhere to get somewhere else. Mm-hmm. It appears that this is what you're suggesting, that you want to get somebody, because you've been carrying this position, the workload of the engineer that is responsible. You've been advertising for how many months now?
It wasn't continuously run. It's not running now.
No, I mean, it hadn't stopped, but I'm just saying, but it's been an ongoing process. Like
Yes.
to me, as long as we've been on the council almost.
Yes, sir.
So I'm just saying, I think, in my opinion, I think you're at a point to where you need to, and it's your call and the mayor's call, and the fact that if somebody is available to help you get the necessary needs covered now, that we release some pressure, some responsibility, some oversight, share that, and at the same time, you may find somebody who would fit the criteria that you're looking for to get us further. And I can support that attitude, because if we lose what we got, we're gonna be that much further. And I have had people to leave me because they felt like they was overworked and underpaid and not appreciated. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to see that happen to you. We gotta, we on the time, we on the clock as it relates to this consent decree, and we already have some challenges. And if this position is going to help you and relieve some what you feel is some pressure to continue to look and then give some assistance to somebody who really needs assistance, I think it's a good thing. I really do. I think it's a good thing, but at the same time, the door is still open for that other person. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Fuller.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Furlong, we've talked a lot about your staffing. I'm just wondering are you staffed up in the rest of your department right now?
No, we have about 20% vacancies. We recently went to the HR board and restructured what I call our project management team, the team that delivers the capital projects. And that's working its way through the final steps of HR to get those positions posted. And I think once they're posted, we'll get them filled fairly quickly. So I'm very optimistic that we'll be 100% staffed very soon.
Thank you. So this position kind of fits into that new structure, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm understanding what you're saying about the pay not being congruent or conducive to what someone with all that experience might require to take on this position. But do you feel like the positions within your new structure are going to be adequately compensated for the expectation in the job descriptions? Or is that something else that we might want to be reconsidering?
Yes,
They're
yes.
competitive enough
They're-
with the private sector to be able to bring in what you need. Okay, my
They-
next question. How are we advertising when we advertise for these positions?
HR advertises through their system, NeoGov, and the city's website. I also reached out to the two engineering societies in Louisiana, American Society of Civil Engineers and Louisiana Engineering Society, and they posted on their web pages.
Have we ever used a headhunter for positions like this when we're looking for something somewhat competitive and with the urgency that we're looking at right now?
I have not personally, but in years past, the city did when they were looking for a public works director and a city engineer. And I did participate in some of those interviews, and I can tell you that there were not many candidates.
Even then?
Even
still?
then.
Okay. The last thing is, do you feel that bringing in this potential candidate to work alongside your assistant city engineer is going to be an adequate fit for dealing with the continuity issues that we can expect changing in the middle of phase 2 from one project manager to the next?
Yes. And a lot of that, the backup of that yes is my confidence in the new program manager. We've been working very closely past couple months, and I know what their plans are, I know what they're going to do, I know what they're doing now, and I'm very confident in their abilities, and I'm very confident in their ability to relay information and for us to monitor and oversee it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. On this structuring, will Ms. Featherston be involved closely with this as well?
We're always working with her. This would not be in her department. It would be in
Right.
engineering. So this employee would be a part of engineering,
Right.
and ultimately report to me.
But
we work very closely with it being sewer work.
okay, and she wouldn't mind offering any assistance if needed, correct?
And her department's funding the position.
Oh, I'm
because
just saying, but I'm just saying as far as the new program manager and yourself, the three of you will be able to, that was just.
Yeah.
Let me ask one more question, Mr. Chairman. I don't think the salary, I think it's a fair, adequate salary. The time frame of the position is how many years?
We put 8
8 years.
in the advertisement.
Okay, and that would phase out pretty much, and that could be one of the issues.
It could be. That's.
Have any applied? Have any inquiries regarding this position have been afforded you?
We had 3.
3?
And I don't know how much I can talk about that. Why we didn't pursue those.
I just wonder, was anybody interested? But there has been 3 inquiries.
3. One was in-house and withdrew after they realized that they really don't want a little bit more money for a temporary position.
But I was just thinking to come into a city or to a job where I'm sure that maybe it's an opportunity once this expires, but to commit to an 8-year position would for me would be sort of
Right.
challenging to do that unless I was going to retire after 8 years.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It'd have to be that perfect candidate that has experience and is ready to end their career.
And
basically.
that was the 30-year experience. That would pretty much categorize that person. Okay.
Yes, sir.
A good deal. Okay, but I still think to get somewhere else is a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else for Mr. Furlong? Thank you. Pat.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just want to quickly comment on Patrick's job. I've observed him under conditions that are very resource constrained, from the amount of money we can offer engineers to the amount of applicants. And he's done a great job exercising ingenuity with what he has to make sure that we address the problem as sufficiently as we possibly can. So I want to applaud him for that. And he does that on top of implementing upgrades and technology, on top of all his other duties and responsibilities as the city engineer. So he does a really good job handling it. On to my next note, we have begun the preliminary process for our general obligations bonds. Not sure if you heard Councilman Boucher talking about it this morning on Kill Radio. And the notice of intent to call for an election in November will be read in the minutes today. But I want the CAO to give some brief updates on that process prior to.
So council members, you probably recall Resolution 70 that was passed on June the 11th actually established the Citizens Bond Committee. And this committee was set together to study the needs and the priorities for city capital improvement projects. We want to thank the council for your appointments to the Citizens Bond Study Committee. The committee was comprised of 2 members from each of the council districts and 2 from the mayor. This group of 16 volunteers, they spent over 20 hours listening to the needs of the city and discussing it amongst themselves to find where their priorities lie. They were tasked to be the voices of the citizens and what they desire to see funding allocated to. On today, this afternoon, I will be forwarding to the council members a list of the funding requests and recommendations that came from the Citizens Bond Committee. And we are going to be asking the council to start to vet those projects amongst the members of the city council. And Mr. Chairman, we will seek your guidance as far as if you want that to be vetted in an infrastructure committee or if there should be a separate committee that's established specifically for the bond study. The timeline that we are looking at is August the 13th. That is a council meeting where the administration will be requesting council to proceed with approving an application to the State Bond Commission. The State Bond Commission would then review that application and they will approve to declare officially an election that will let the voters choose on specific propositions as you all determine, which would include the projects that you have vetted to be appropriate to move forward with. We've been working really closely with Bond Council to establish a timeline to a November 16th election and then an issuance of bonds in early 2019. On the agenda today is where the city council clerk will read into the minutes the right for the council to call for an election. There would not be any action required from the council on today, but again, we will be forwarding the list of those projects to you so that you can begin to vet those amongst the members of the council. And at the August 13th meeting will be the date that the administration will be asking for the council to approve for us to apply to the state to call for an election for November the 16th.
All right. Thank you.
All right. And Mr. Chair, my last note, this one wasn't written down, but I see we have former State Representative Roy Burrell in the audience. I want to acknowledge him and also thank him for the work that he did for me on my economic development transition team. And just say applaud him for all the good work he's continuing to do in our community with the sickle cell softball tournament that's coming up as well, that I was happy to come and get gifted a jersey with. So looking forward to that, and thank you for attending.
All right. Mayor, let me add that also last week he finished his annual Biz Camp project with his young people. I think he had. Roy, why don't you just come up for a second? Can I ask you?
I can't even keep up with him, Councilman. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to express my appreciation for Biz Camp. Can you give us some numbers on that this year? He came in after I recognized my
I got you.
My guess.
Well, this seemed a little bit familiar to me. But anyway, my name is Roy Burrell, 2613 Lakeway Drive. Councilman Bradford asked me to kind of give a short update, I assume, on our BizCamp program. We had 61 registered, and because of our stringent guidelines, we ended up with 40 young people. We normally have an attrition rate once they find out that we're not playing, and that it's a very intense program that they go through. Our youngsters, for those of you that don't know anything about the BizCamp program, I want to recognize my city councilman as well as chairman here, as well as the other council members. Our program has been going on now 19 years. Next year it'll be 20. I appreciate those who did come out and support us. I know some of you know about it. You all partner with us in terms of funding. And although we had reduced funding this year, we did make it through. I'm committed to have a successful program at least for 20 years. Next year would be our 20th year. We've graduated more than 1,100 students over those 20 years. Many of them are coming back to Shreveport and starting their businesses. And we're very, very proud of that. Councilman Fleury, I appreciate you coming out again this year. They seem so excited. We have some great students this year. They did come down to the city council. The city council chambers, where they worked with the MPC on things that they needed in order to, the legal structure and the things that they needed to start a business in Shreveport. So we appreciate all of the things that you all do here at the city council, and I think I'm supposed to be coming back up dealing with the Red River Waterway Commission. So again, I do appreciate you, and hopefully y'all continue to support us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burrell. I also missed the fact that he was a former city councilman too, so yeah, I didn't go down the whole bio. We would have been here for a while. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Perkins and Ms. Jones. Mr. Green, property standard. Didn't want to have any questions or concerns.
The grass, Mr. Green, just seemed to be the subject of the day. Getting a lot of inquiries about that. Are we on the schedule? How are you dealing with the overgrown lots?
You know, we basically do it in a rotation. That inspector in that particular area does. So everyone's cutting now. And we have now started, we'll start demolitions this week.
Mr. Green, I was contacted by a citizen who has a neighbor who is in a nursing home. A tree fell on her driveway and has not been cut up for some time. Is that something the city can help with, or no? I mean, do we have men that can, on request, cut up a tree on private property, or no?
Well, I mean, we're enforcement.
Yeah.
We can do it, but a lien will be placed on the property.
Okay. We have anybody who can do it without putting a lien on a lady with dementia's property? Because I said I could call you, but then I thought, well, I don't know if I want to do that to this lady in the nursing home. So maybe we talk about it. How about that?
You might be able to get Gary to do it.
Well, maybe I'll ask Mr. Gary to do it. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll talk. Thanks.
All right. I think that we have something to come up tomorrow, correct? Do we have a case tomorrow or no?
No, we got a case today.
It's today?
Yes.
Okay. You want to do that now?
Okay.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
All right. Our case today is 5321 Broadway Avenue. This is structure that was burned. Okay, there we go. All right. The property owner, or the previous property owner that was coming to council, has sold the property. Okay. All right. And as you can see, the new property owner has actually started pulling stuff out of the mobile home and wishes to redo the mobile home and live in it. So what we have to do is close this case out, and in order for us to pursue the new property owner, we'll have to start it over with a new violation.
Mr. Chair,
Okay,
I'd like to make a motion that we close out the previous legislation we had on the table for the owner of this property. And then I don't know if I need to make two motions or not, and then give the new owner you don't have to do that. Just close it out.
I second that motion.
Okay, before that, I just wanted to ask, where were we with this, on this person before they sold? I knew they were coming down and we gave them extension to.
We're giving them until,
We've given her time to
just time to come up, but nothing monetary or nothing like that though, correct?
No, we gave her time to sell the property, which is what she.
Okay. No problem. It's been properly motion by Councilman Green and second by Councilman Bradford. If there's no other discussion, please vote. Motion carries with 7. Thank you.
That's it.
So in regards to the new owner and how are you communicating? I'm sorry, maybe I need to ask the councilman for that district.
Well, I called him.
And he's committed to what kind of timeline in getting the property refurbished?
He's got a month, and I told him I'm
Yes,
gonna
what
rewrite.
now?
I gave him a month. If I didn't see any significant improvements, that I was gonna bring him on back.
I'll talk to Mr. Green.
Okay, good.
Okay. If that's it, then thank you, Mr. Green and Mr. Green.
Okay.
All right. I think Ms. Jones or Mr. Brown sent us,
The revenue collections
right,
report.
okay.
Yes.
Just want to make sure.
Sent on Friday.
And Ms. Creel will have something for us
Yes,
as
sir.
well. All right, is there any legislation to be added, Ms. Jones?
Yes, there is one. It's listed as ordinance 86, an ordinance amending the 2019 capital improvements budget. And this is for utility projects, specifically which appropriates the water and sewer revenue bonds.
All right. Any comments or questions on that?
I think there's a process that we need to follow. You prepared to it? Is the administration prepared to give a?
What's that, Councilman?
I was wondering if the administration was prepared to give us some insight on this added agenda item.
I can. So the administration, we have just finalized the contract. I know that we had discussions at the last meeting that council members wanted to see the contract completed. And legal has been working really hard to complete that. So if this is added to the agenda, it would be up for introduction only. It is a two-reader, so it would not be up for a vote until 2 weeks after tomorrow. But the administration is requesting the council to reconsider this ordinance so that we can move forward with funding projects specifically for the contract with Burns McDonnell and Bonton, our new project managers.
Yeah. And the only two things I'd like to add to the council is one, you know, we talked about delays when paying our bills. Burns and McDonnell and Bonton are already on the ground doing work, so this would be a delay on when we could actually start paying them for that work. And the second thing is it would also expedite the complete transition from the previous project manager, who we've talked at length about in some of the deficiencies, to the new project manager, and the new policies that we have to make sure that the work is being done to a new and better standard as well. So those are the 2 points I'd like to add to that.
All right, Vice Chair Nicholson.
Mr. Chairman, I do think it would be appropriate to add this to the agenda at the mayor's request, but I hope between introduction tomorrow and our consideration for final passage in 2 weeks, that we could have a comprehensive presentation and a committee meeting discussing both the contract, the transition from CDM Smith to Burns and McDonnell, and any other questions council members have before we make a decision about whether to approve an additional $108 million of expenditures. Thank you.
All right, I think that's appropriate.
I just sent this email asking our engineer, so we have Burns McDonnell, and their subs, they have been on site working since June the 17th. Of course, this was a part of the game plan for them to help us to transition effectively so that would be a smooth process. At some point, we do need to start paying them.
Okay. All right, so is that a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved by, I'm asking, to add this to the agenda.
Why don't you do it tomorrow?
Do it tomorrow at the, that's why I'm asking, is it, we don't add it today or tomorrow, we add it tomorrow at the regular session, right? Okay,
Yeah.
just making sure. You gonna make the motion tomorrow? All right.
I'm accommodating.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Jones.
Thank you.
We have the following request to speak.
Ms. Megan Chavez.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you guys doing?
All right, hello.
Awesome. Well, Megan Chavez, I am coming here to speak to you guys as a fellow Shreveport resident, as well as a business owner at the downtown airport. I recently acquired the airport's restaurant in June of last year. It took us up until January to do renovations on the airport's restaurant. It was in pretty poor conditions with a little bit of help of the airport as well. Just to kind of do a little check on a couple of things that needed to be handled with the appearance of the airport. Some of the things like the bathrooms, we share the bathroom with the airport. Our customers go in there as well as people flying in and out. They come into our restaurant and of course complain about the bathrooms. There were urinals missing. I'm not quite sure how long it's been since the bathrooms have been updated. They don't look as if they've been updated since they were built. So you're looking at 40 plus years. The bathroom still smells of urine, just pretty much due to haven't been updated in the past few years, the past multiple years. A couple of other things, the toilet papers are being held by duct tape. There's also surrounding buildings that are dilapidated, and I'm not quite sure who owns them or if the city can really do anything about that, but there's windows missing, the doors are open, and they're literally right there on the airport. I don't know if that has anything to do with the resolution going through or not, but also the barbed wire on the fences, it does kind of look somewhat like a prison whenever you're coming into the airport. So whenever we first moved in, we were told that there was a little bit of funds that they were going to kind of update the facility a little bit. That's why we invested in the downtown airport. One, because I think it has, complete amazing potential on economic development coming in here in Shreveport and people flying in all over and then coming to eat as well, coming to enjoy Shreveport. And, I just, as a business owner in that area, I just ask you guys to respectively pass the resolution. And also I invite everyone to come down there. Before I had even gone to the airport to look at everything to see if we wanted to put a business in there, I had no idea that the airport was even down there. I've been a resident of Shreveport for 29 years. And so going down there, you kind of realize like the potential of everything. You're watching the planes come in, you see kids and they come watch the planes. It's free, it's free to watch these people fly in and out. And it's free entertainment, but at the same time it is, it's CEOs flying in. It's people from different states, not just Texas, Arkansas, Mississippi, our surrounding area, but you have people from California flying in. You have people from Denver flying in, New York flying in, and all these CEOs that you would like to invest in your city, but the first thing that they're seeing is a poor building, unfortunately, and that does kind of make the other people renting it out, the other businesses in the area look bad, on top of Shreveport look bad. And so I just, wanted to bring that to you guys' attention. I would love for you guys to come down. I'd love to give you a tour of the airport. I don't know really all the history behind it, but I've been there for a year, and, if you've been there, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Hey. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you guys.
Councilman Butcher.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Councilman Butcher.
Address? They're just sitting here thinking about how good dinner or lunch was last time they were there. They're like sitting over here thinking about meatloaf, and they forgot to get your address for the record.
Thank you. Well, if you haven't been there, I would love for you to come just to show you the building and
Well,
stuff.
to be honest, I was thinking about the meatloaf, but
But we need your address for the record.
Oh, sorry. 9021 Blum Boulevard, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71118.
I appreciate both you and your husband investing in Shreveport. I'm glad that we're partners. I think you have a great restaurant up there. I was a little disappointed myself, and I've said this before to the mayor. First time I had been up there probably in about a year and a half was to come and eat at your restaurant. And there are some issues out there. That dilapidated building coming in right to the right, I'm not quite sure where we are with that, but it probably needs to be, we're looking at a property standards violation on Broadway, but we've got that building that looks like it's about to fall in. So
Yeah.
I'll support anything I can, especially this resolution that y'all have, and I appreciate y'all's diligence and really bringing this to us and bringing it to our attention. And we appreciate you partnering up with us.
Well, I appreciate you guys. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I'll make it. Oh, go ahead, Councilman. I'll jump in afterwards.
Mayor Perkins.
I'll just make a quick comment about the state of our downtown airport. The compliance issues that I've referenced in multiple council meetings that we had with the FAA, where we were, my first week in office, we were being threatened on losing upwards of $30 million from our funding because of our compliance issues. Another component of us now being in compliance, the SAA board voted to have those lease agreements that the leaseholders and the FAA say are in compliance. They did that last week, I believe, or 2 weeks ago. So we're in compliance now, but also what that does is generate more revenue for the downtown airport. And I mean, it's been 30 plus years since we've been out of compliance, and 30 plus years when we weren't getting the revenue needed to make the necessary improvements and the baseline improvements that we needed to the downtown airport. So now that we are in compliance, we have the new lease agreements, there'll be more revenue for us to make upgrades and make sure that we're putting on the best for Shreveport going forward. So just an update.
All right, Councilman Fleury.
Shelley, Dollar General sells pine oil for $1 a bottle, and I find pine oil does real good on getting rid of urine smell. So, you know, just a little investment might help that, you know, and I don't know what to do about the windows. You'll have to talk to Councilman Bradford about that. But, you know, I think we could do something about the urine right away. I know you shake your head, but give those folks at the downtown airport a lesson in pine oil.
Yeah, Councilman, I got to defend Shelley. That's why she's looking helpless. Shelley, the airport authority are the ones that maintain the airport facilities. So Shelley's saying.
But Shelley is the expert in maintenance of buildings for the city, and she knows about that pine oil. And all she got to do is fire email over to the downtown
Let them know what's
authority, and they can fix that. Not that hard.
I agree, Councilman Fleury. Next.
Mr. Roy Burrell.
Well, we'll try this again. Roy Burrell, 2613 Lakeway Drive, Shreveport 71109. To our city council chairman again, and to the other council members, our illustrious mayor, Mayor Perkins. I'm here at the request of Parish Commissioner Mario Chavez. He came to the Red River Waterway Commission, in which I'm a member of the board of the commission of the Red River Waterway Commission, which is a political subdivision of the state. And we deal with issues associated with Red River and those initiatives that are adjacent to the river. And since I've been there, which I've been there now a little bit over a year, many of the other members who've been there for umpteen years, only looked at the Red River Commission to fund projects such as ports and recreational facilities. That is written in the legislation, in the state legislation that was passed for the Red River Waterway Commission. But there are also languages, I mean, there is language in there also that does not specifically speak to just those two projects. So it's sort of an educational process, if I can add, to help educate our board that they need to look beyond just ports and recreational facilities. There are other economic development projects that the Red River supports that they need to consider. Since I've been there, I have researched their documents to see how many economic development reports that they've had, and I've only found 2 since their beginning, and the last one was 5 years ago. So I'm trying to encourage them to look at updating their economic development plan. They do have an economic development impact study that they do, but that doesn't really do what we need to do. So I'm saying all that to say this. The downtown airport, I included in the recommendation that I made to the mayor through the Economic Development Task Force that he had assigned me to. And I think that that's a jewel in the rough. It used to be in my legislative district, and I know some of the problems that are there. So I'm doing everything possible from my perspective on the commission to try to open up that conversation. So the issue that you all are having to get grant monies from the commission, there is a process that we have. And I think I've explained that process the best I know how, based upon what was given to us, is that the resolution that you're presenting today, it should just request us to look at the funding, potential funding of the grant that you had asked for, and we will discuss it. We will invite you down, you can explain it, and we will vote from there. And that's as simple as that.
All right.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Wait a minute, Roy.
I'm sorry, Councilman Green.
Thank you, Representative. My remarks is to Councilman Bradford and Councilman Fleury. Attorney Ron Latier said that he represents North Louisiana and that he's in support of it, that if you all would contact him, then he would work with you all to assist in getting the presentation that you would present to the board in Natchitoches and do whatever it takes to get it going. He said, but as of this time, nobody had contacted him, and he being the representative for this area. But he's in full support of it. He just wanted me to make mention of that. He saw the legislation, but he hadn't been contacted. And
Could I clarify something, Councilman Green? I want to recognize you as my former colleague in the fights that we did during those years.
You can clarify, but I'm just passing on what he said. I don't know.
No, you're correct.
Yeah.
No,
okay.
I'm just saying that Commissioner Latier was recommended by the Caddo Parish Commission to represent Caddo Parish on the board. I'm a councilman at large, so I represent all of them. So because I live here, I have a special interest because I've worked in the economic development area since, in this, in our particular area. So if something comes up with Shreveport, Bossier, then I'm going to be on top of it one way or the other. But Commissioner Latier is the person that you should contact, whether it's the city council or the parish commission, but you can also contact me.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Councilman Fleury.
I'm just gonna take that for what it's worth and smoke at it as my pipe.
Put in your pipe.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, let me just respond to Councilman Green. I accept his recommendation in contacting Commissioner Latier. But I want to say that when Commissioner Chavez invited myself as well as Councilman Fleury out to the airport last year, we did get the tour and saw the condition of the airport, downtown airport. And we was talking about how we can help upgrade that facility. We even went out toward the runway and saw, the grass and the whole lawn apparatus of the airport not being groomed and maintained. He invited us back out there, and we had a conversation about the possibility of soliciting the River Waterway Commission to help us. But he went a little further because he has an investment out there. He and his wife, and you heard her earlier, they upgraded the restaurant area, and the activity of the restaurant has increased, but the facility in whole is not what it needs to be. So we looked at what would attract the criteria that the River Waterway has for awarding grants to facilities, and it's on the river. At least it extends out to the river, and we saw where the economic development issue is addressed in this resolution, as well as the recreational component is addressed in this. we said that once we do this resolution, then we will contact all the necessary people, as well as we would travel to the meeting and make our presentation. We would take a delegation of us, and certainly contacting our local representative was part of that process. We wanted to get this as the entry talking discussion. If Mr. Lutier feel offended that we hadn't reached out to him.
No, he didn't.
Okay, I'm just saying that we apologize, but we will once, and I really solicit the council's support, because this is a great opportunity for us. My understanding is that they are receptive to hearing us, and whether or not the approval of the fund would be available. We use as the example and model the dog park. If you remember, they helped with that at a nice level. So we're just saying that we want to present a resolution to the commission and say, listen, we need some help, and we meet your criteria of what you would require us. But we think the outcome would be a win-win for everybody. So again, it's in my district, but I didn't frequent out there until Mr. Bez opened his restaurant and his wife, and I see the potential. I see beyond facelifting the airport. I think we can really attract that into being a substitute for a lot of the traffic that maybe go out to the regional. So I just see a great opportunity for us to explore this all the way to to your commission, and I appreciate your support of it, and we will be lobbying most of the
well, you're welcome to come down. It's just open meeting.
Yeah, we got the schedule. Once this is approved, if the council so choose to prepare a resolution to be sent forward down there, then we will see when it will become a part of your agenda, and we will be coming down. In the interim, we will be making some contacts as well. And thank you for your support. Thank you.
Mayor Perkins.
Yeah, Mr. Burrell, with this, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the fiscal stature of the Waterway Commission off the top of your head, but would this possibly impact any funding requests the city could have on shoring up that bayou area where the land has been eroding on the opposite, on the far side of the airport? Could this request for funding impact a future request for funding for assistance there?
Well, those are I would think that those would be separate projects.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I can't say that one will not influence the other because, we have a limited budget, just like most budgets. But I feel that if you make the case, I'm sure that the other commissioners will go, will work with you on it. We have a great commission over in Bossier that works with us, and I think that we can do some things here because we're the largest contributor to our budget. Caddo Parish is, and I think that bodes well for those of us who help represent this area to make a case.
Yeah.
And that's the way I view it.
Okay. So, has there been any discussion thus far about shoring up the land that's eroding pretty quickly because of the high rainfall that we have? Have you had?
The only other discussion that we've had, which concerns Cross Bayou, as part of the Opportunity Zone. Yep. I set up a meeting for Larry English to come down and explain that project to the commissioners, and they seem very receptive to that. Now, in terms of securing the money to get started on it, that commitment has not been made.
Yeah. And so Cross Bayou is on one side, and then you have the airport on the other side. So did they talk about just shoring up one side, or did they talk about both?
They did not.
They didn't talk about, okay, all right.
Councilman Green?
Thank you. Maybe I didn't explain it right what Ron said to me. He said
that this resolution was okay, but we didn't actually need a resolution. Just get with him, he'll get it on the agenda, and he'll set it up for us to come and do a presentation. He, in full support of it, and he had no problems with it. So he said the resolution is okay, but you don't need a resolution. He said all you need to do, you all talk to him, he'll help you with the presentation, and we'll get the money to do what we need to do. He says just that simple.
Yeah, the resolution wasn't really an issue. It was some language that was in there that said that basically the commission had already agreed to the funding, and that wasn't the case because it hadn't been brought up, to that extent, and that was the only issue with the resolution.
We'll deal with that at the time, because we did meet with the city attorney, and she, she was excellent in helping direct us in the language. There was some conversation that we've had with the commission, but we'll deal with that. I'm gonna make a suggestion that we remove it or amend it.
Actually, Councilman, we've already updated the language pursuant to those conversations. Danielle got it updated, and it's uploaded now.
Disregard that third paragraph.
All right.
And I would love to take credit for that, but that was all Danielle.
Yeah, he says.
It was all Danielle.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Danielle's excellent.
Any other questions?
I think that's it. Thank you so much, Mr. Burrell.
Thank you.
Mr. Tracy Toops.
Mayor Perkins, council members, thank you all for your community service. I'm Tracy Toops of 424 Braemar Road, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71106. Just wanted to make a couple of comments in regards to the potential ordinance change to the separate entrance ordinance for hard alcohol sales. A couple of things I wanted to point out is in Louisiana, there are several different laws across the state. Indeed, for instance, Minden is a not completely dry town, but they do not have any packaged liquor stores. The city of New Orleans allows for open container laws throughout the city. And Shreveport, for its own reasons, also has a different ordinance in regards to hard alcohol sales, one of which is a separate entrance. The couple things I wanted to point out in regards to hard alcohol is that, the currently operating grocery stores, independent liquor stores that are abiding by the current ordinance are seemingly doing well. So why uproot and fix something that's not broken? Two, wanted just to mention to everyone that the separate entrances, especially being born and raised and being in this business for going on 17 years, the separate entrances deter underage purchase attempts and drinking. It helps law enforcement to recognize and isolate problems, and this pertains to underage sales, the potential occurrence of underage theft, and in the liquor business, theft is a major concern, and overall theft in general. So I just wanted to bring those points up in regards to the ordinance change to hard alcohol. Secondly, on a completely different topic, and I'm assuming it's okay for me to talk about the cameras on a different topic. In regards to the cameras, we've had cameras anywhere from 5 to 15 cameras, depending on which store, in our stores for close to 12 years now. Those cameras have been nothing but beneficial. They are an investment, and I think that they have paid for themselves several times over now. They help control theft, both internal and external. And we've, over the course of our time of having the cameras, we have assisted the Shreveport Police and the Bossier City Police numerous times in finding solutions to some of their problems, as well as many of our problems as well. So those are my comments in regards to that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Toops.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Mr. Ron Lepo.
Members of the council, my name is Ron Lepo. I live at 1132 Erie Street in Shreveport, and I am the third generation of owners of Cuban Liquor, which was started by my grandparents in 1934. And I'm here to talk about the replacement of Section 10-84 that's proposed, and I think would be a big mistake, mostly because of unintended consequences. The full replacement of a provision is dangerous. When this first came up, who knew that we were talking about adding 40 to 50 liquor stores in Shreveport, where these stores would be selling hard liquor where minors are allowed to be. This provision, if it passed, even with amendments, would add new restrictions to my store and damage my store in ways unrelated to that issue of the minors. Instead of a full replacement of this section, why not do something small to solve the problem that brought this forward? One of the main reasons for this is that there's a place on the Southern Loop that would like to be able to sell meat. Nobody's against that. They're a liquor store. They're fine with having people 21 to come in, and they can have that as a rule of their establishment, and they should be allowed to have that. But they're not according to current law. Current law could have one sentence added to it that says the provisions of this section shall not apply to any retail liquor dealer lawfully operating a business where patrons are required to be at least 21 years of age to enter the premises. No need to kill a gnat with a bazooka. This would be an irreversible change to replace this entire provision. Let's fix it with one little sentence.
Chair?
Councilwoman Fuller.
Mr. Lepo, that's basically the nature of the amendment that was proposed by me and Councilman Butcher.
Okay, I'm not, I saw in the meeting earlier there was some discussion of an amendment, but the amendment was to the new provision is my understanding.
The amendment, well, it's, yeah, basically we still need to create consistency. There's just there's a snafu in what we have currently, and so we do need to go ahead and redraft. And within that draft that we have, the amendment would be that this is only subject to businesses that are already 21 and up.
But
that's basically, it comes down to the same thing.
I think that solves the 21-year-old problem, but it doesn't solve there's added provisions in this new section regarding sales of liquor for consumption only off the premises, and that is not in current law. That is in proposed law only.
If I'm not mistaken, what we were told by Agent Cisco was that what you're having to do now by having to get what you would have to do is get the event permits to do your tastings.
Which I don't now.
Because you have the bar license.
Because my city permit, the city permits are not specific to premise. With regard to the law, there have been words added over the last few years, but the law was never enacted. So the law does not specifically clarify whether a liquor permit is off-premise or on-premise. They rely on, let the state do that. And so there are state permits that are specific to liquor on or off the premises, but there's no need for that at the city level. And there isn't now, and that is what Agent Cisco said, what Officer Cisco said, I realize. What I'm saying is, if that's already the way the law is, then we don't need to add all this new stuff, but I don't agree with him.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Lepo.
Anybody else?
No. Mr. Michael Laban.
Hello, my
My name is Michael Laban, 1298 Leonard Road, Shreveport, Louisiana. Thank you for letting me speak. I am owner, co-owner, and operator of Thrifty Liquor, discount liquor and wine chain. Have been for 25 years. I am second generation. My grandfather, James Melton, was one of the original founders. I don't know if any of y'all remember him. Obviously, they've already covered some of the things that we disagree with. I was in the meeting earlier and heard y'all talking about one gentleman wanted to put in a door, and maybe that could be part of the tweak. I would say that that would not be a good idea, because that gentleman would be very good at managing his own store. But if we do that, then we allow any store to put a wall up, whether it be a Dollar General, whoever's selling what, and who's to say that they're going to maintain that entrance the same as that gentleman promised he would? Just the whole idea is to keep minors away from hard alcohol. That's why the whole provision was put in the first place. It would limit their accessibility to it, the theft of it, shoplifting. Also, we talked about mainstreaming or streamlining with the whole state. If we start doing everything that everybody else in the state does, and then somebody's going to come up to you and why can't we have open containers in Shreveport? They have them in New Orleans. Well, that's already come. It's been addressed. It's been voted down numerous times. It's not something that Shreveport wants. I think that it's a dangerous precedent to start changing laws every time somebody opens a business and they didn't follow the law. We've been around. We operate under the law. I have no problem with Cork and Cuts operating, being in, and I think that the 21 and over stipulation would be perfect. But if somebody opens up a business and it's against the law and they don't like that, they're going to come to you and say, well, you did it for them, you got to do it for us. That's all I really have to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Butcher.
Mr. Lehman.
Yes.
Right now, the way that the amendment to this legislation is written is that it would be 21 years of age to enter. They could sell whatever, meats or whatever they wanted to in there. However, I think that takes out, we did get a lot of feedback from people of not wanting liquor on the aisles, and I think this council pretty much agrees on that. So I think I am not for putting a door in anywhere. I mean, he was entitled to his opinion, but I don't think that that's the direction we're going to go. I think that it's going to be 21 years to enter if you're selling hard liquor. So that pretty much alleviates what your issue is, I would think.
I think that would also help with the ATC and Shreveport Police Department, that they don't have to worry about monitoring all these other places. Well, they do a fine job. And they're stretched for money just like any other city's, police department and government departments are. So why put the strain on them when they don't need it?
I feel like that legislation will not be presented to do it like that. I believe that the amendment is probably the only thing that's going to pass, and I think that's the way we're going to do it. So,
thank you for your time. Y'all have a good day. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Robert Bryant.
Council, Mayor, Steve Roop, 924 Captain Shreve in Shreveport. I came here today to really talk for just a minute about the issues at the downtown airport. I'm on the RASA board. I'm on the Economic Development Committee board of the Committee of 100. I'm immediate past chairman of the Shreveport Chamber and on their executive committee. I've been on the North Louisiana Economic board, NLEP. So I've been a banker, commercial banker here for 27 years. So I've spent a ton of my life mired in economic development. I'm also, as of next month, a 41-year commercial pilot. And I operate primarily out of the downtown airport, and I've been out there for decades now. What I'd really like to encourage you to do is, I don't know if this requires a resolution or not, but whatever we can do to get funds, to shake funds loose, the amount of money that's being thrown around to do some facelifting and fix some obvious problems. And you not only have to visit it, but you got to hear what corporate pilots say when they come in here and their clients. It's not a good best foot forward for the city. And first impressions are important. and this thing's gone for decades without really any investment in it. A Harris poll tracked corporate aircraft use and determined that respondents use their aircraft 33% in pursuit of new business opportunities, 43% visiting customers, and 24% visiting their own offices and facilities. What that means to us is that every third airplane, 1 out of every 3 that's landing their corporate airplane, is here seeking new business opportunities. I would challenge you that if we had a road coming into Shreveport where 1 out of every 3 cars coming down that road was coming here to seek new business opportunities in Shreveport, we would have the marching band out and the key to the city, for that. Harris data also indicates that 77% of the folks that get on or off these corporate aircraft are management, and 22% are top management. We need to make a favorable impression when those people hit the ground and walk through these doors, and a lot of that corporate traffic comes to the downtown airport. I always like to tell folks, being a longtime advocate of business aviation, that a mile of road won't get you very far, but a mile of runway opens up the world to you. I would hope that you would support the resolution and whatever means necessary for a fairly small amount of money in the scheme of things to make this improvement. And I appreciate the work of the mayor on the lease resolution and the other things that have been done to help the airport. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Robert Bryant. Oh, I'm so sorry. Got off my list. Mr. Steve Roop.
He spoke to Steve. That was
What?
Robert
Okay.
Bryant. You're not,
hang on.
You're not hallucinating.
All right. I got. The chairman just hands me these cards and I read through them as best I can. Okay, Mike Johnson, how about that? Mr. Mike Johnson.
He's in Washington right now.
Right.
That Mike Johnson.
Mr. Randy Comer.
Randy Comey.
Nope. All right. Mr. Charles Lombardino.
He's in the chair.
Good evening, council. Charles Lombardino, 104 Southwood Drive, Bossier City, Louisiana, 71111. I guess I'm a little confused in the ordinance pertaining to the security. I had been told that the 4K part of that had been taken off and that that part was going to be changed. Is that not true?
I do intend to offer an amendment, sir, that will remove the 4K resolution requirement. That hasn't happened yet, but it will before the ordinance is considered.
It will, okay. I think what we're all concerned with is safety. And I think if we're talking about safety in communities as well as downtown, which I think sets an image of what Shreveport is. And I know there's been some talk about putting some public cameras down there, and I think that's a good thing. But what we need is the same thing we kind of need in communities as well as downtown, is we need more police officers. We have a shortage of police officers downtown, and I think the city needs to find the funds to provide some more so that we've lost a big market of patrons that come downtown due to the perception and the reality of being unsafe. There's been some, you'll hear that downtown has the safest record of any district, but we're not really open 7 days a week. It's more of a 2-day-a-week thing. So, I think that's kind of skews things a little bit. But what I think we should do, and this is mainly for the Red River District. I've been down there for 33 years. You know, lighting, you know, that's safety in a community, and that's safety in a entertainment area. We have so many lights that are non-existent. Bulbs are out, no poles. I mean, we're talking 30 or 40 of these lights. Our gateway to the Red River District is unlit. It's like having a store and turning your sign off at night. You know, people should come over that bridge and they should see those Red River District gateways, you know, the way they should be. When we're talking about these, I think you all know what we. Right now, the biggest, newest part of it says begin higher fine zone. So, you know, that's not really the image we're trying to send to the public. But I mean, there's lights out at Festival Plaza. I mean, here's one right by the Spring Street Museum with a cone on it. It's gone. You know, my understanding is that SWEPCO is supposed to maintain them, but the city is supposed to supply the parts. I don't think SWEPCO has a problem maintaining them because that's revenue in their pockets, but for somehow these lights have been out for quite a while.
Mr. Lombardini, your suggestion is very good, and I'll ask the city through Ms. Jones to make sure that we're doing our part to maintain the lighting downtown, but your time has expired, and I appreciate it.
Okay.
I'll make some comments really quickly. So we're actually in the middle of a project right now to light the bridge and to relight that entrance into the Red River District. So that project is supposed to be complete by next summer. So you should be seeing some relief there. And also, SWEPCO, they own some of their own lights that they maintain, and the city owns different ones. So we'll do the best job we can do with making sure that lighting is sufficient down there. And we're looking at, we got some grant funding from Commissioner Foster as well to do some LED lighting that lasts longer. So we'll be looking at making sure we implement what we can downtown.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I guess I need to be under the new business.
Mr. Keith
well,
Brown.
thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Keith Brown. All right. Mr. Marvin Muhammad. I don't know if this is a request for today or tomorrow, but I don't see Mr. Muhammad here, so I'll assume tomorrow. We have no executive appointments to be considered tomorrow. There are no items under consent agenda for introduction or to be adopted. Mrs. Jones, please proceed to regular agenda legislation.
Resolution 82 is authorizing the mayor to execute an intergovernmental agreement with the Caddo Parish Sheriff's Office to jointly purchase, own, and maintain the public safety logging system. Resolution 83 is recognizing Alex T. Ray for Shreveport's first inaugural Father's Day 5K Run and Walk 2019. Resolution 84 recognizing Lucas Harris II and to dedicate the 1800 block of Michael Street in his memory for his commitment and contributions to the city of Shreveport. Resolution 85 is authorizing the mayor to dedicate the 6600 block of West Canal Boulevard between Despot Road and Amherst Street to Benjamin Joseph Finney Jr. Resolution 86 is proposing a code text amendment to the Shreveport Unified Development Code for consideration by the MPC. Resolution 88 is a resolution authorizing the Audit and Finance Committee to investigate the Finance Department as authorized by Section 4.29 of the Charter of the City of Shreveport. Resolution 89 is a resolution concerning the music genre Southern Soul.
Mr. Chairman, I think the CAO forgot Resolution 81. I think you have to refresh. It was off to put on an amendment, and I'm not sure 87 was read.
Okay. Yes, I do see. I'll go back to Resolution 81 is authorizing the mayor to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement between the city of Shreveport and participating high schools through their governing bodies relative to the Battle on the Border 2019 high school football showcase and the use of city personnel, property, and equipment.
All right, Councilwoman Fuller.
Thank you, Chair. I intend to either postpone or withdraw Resolution 86 so that I can have some discussion with Mr. Clark. We had a little talk about this. There might be a way to achieve our goal without having to go through this legislation process. So I want to see if we can figure that out first. Thank you.
Vice Chair Nicholson.
Mr. Chairman, we've had some discussions among the council over the past several months about cooperative endeavor agreements and the extent to which this council should be in the business of giving the city's money away. I haven't taken a position on Resolution 81, but I do want to note that this resolution would involve us paying high schools to travel, high school football teams to travel to Shreveport to participate in a football tournament, and also for high schools located more than 200 miles away would have the city paying for 34 rooms or up to 34 rooms apiece for those high school students. I'm sure this is a very worthy activity. It's been in place for a number of years, but as constrained as the city's finances are, I just wonder about our spending $80,000 of taxpayer money to fund it rather than having the participants look to other funding sources. And I will say, but before I yield the floor, that I recognize the city collects some revenue from tickets that are sold to the event, and I would be interested to know the net cost or benefit to the city financially. Thank you.
Yeah, we can get some details for you by tomorrow.
Thank you.
Councilman Fleury.
I support this resolution. I believe it adds to the city in economic development. If we want to take it and strike it in the budget process this year for next year, I'd be willing to look at that, and that's perhaps where we would need to do it. But we've committed last year for this, and this to me would be a travesty if we whacked it right now. So I hope that you're talking about in the budget process going forward.
Yeah, Councilman, if you yield briefly, I'm not suggesting that we pull the rug out from under anybody. I just think we need to continue to have a conversation about these funding expenditures.
I do. Okay, I agree. We should have we can and should have a conversation about this for the future, but not right now. Not just saying that because of my district. I'm also just saying it because I just believe that that's the right thing to do. So.
Can we get Director Regal up to talk about the source of these funds and how we execute the contracts with the individual schools to participate?
Ms. Regal?
Yes, thank you. You're correct in how the contract works, but all the funding that we raise for anything such as this, those are all private dollars. We go out and we raise about $80,000 to put this event on so that we don't have to use any city funding for transportation, hotel rooms. We can get you the economic impact numbers. We're partners with the Sports Commission on this event, and we can get you the numbers so you'll know also how it benefits the city. Because with every one of these students comes a parent or grandparent, aunts, uncles. But we can get that number for you, but just want you to know this money we raise so that it's not.
Well, if we're spending private dollars, that alleviates some sign up raise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Brown.
In regards to Resolution 88, certainly, I would never dissuade the council from exercising its authorities, but can somebody tell me the scope of this resolution and the scope of the investigation? Who would exercise the investigation, and what triggered the committee for warranting such a investigation?
Councilman Nicholson.
Councilman Bradford, I appreciate your question. As you may recall, several members of the council met a number of weeks ago with our external auditor, Tom Sims from Carr, Riggs and Ingram. And Mr. Sims gave us a very concerning preview of the findings he expects his firm's audit for 2018 to include. I mentioned those during our last council meeting, but I'll give a summary again. The first problem that he mentioned is that for reasons that are as yet unclear, the city of Shreveport failed in 2018, before the current administration took office, to file its payroll tax forms with the Louisiana Department of Revenue on time, and consequently incurred penalties of $189,000, which we paid. I understand from discussions that I've had this week that we received notices of an additional $136,000 for failing to file our fourth quarter 941 tax form with the federal government on time. That alone, in my view, would be enough to warrant a council investigation, because there simply is no excuse, I would think, for failing to file payroll tax forms on time for an organization of this size. The external auditor also indicated to us that at some point during 2018, and I haven't yet ascertained when this problem was corrected or if it has been, but at some point in 2018, the city had on deposit $15 million of cash that was not collateralized by a pledge of securities, of stocks and bonds, as required by state law to protect a municipality's cash investments. The external auditor further advised us that the city is not reconciling its operating and payroll accounts on time, which of course is something that is absolutely essential for us to know whether money is being spent as we have directed and as the mayor has directed his staff to spend it. And there are other findings that we were advised of that are equally concerning. My intention in sponsoring this resolution, along with 3 of our colleagues, is to initiate an investigation that initially will involve only working with the internal auditor. We, I think, need to have a conversation after we've spoken to the key personnel in the finance department about whether we need to bring in outside counsel to expand that investigation. I'm not proposing that at this point, but as a member of the council, when an external auditor comes to me and says, you're not filing your taxes on time and you're not balancing your operating and payroll accounts, I just think we have to act. And so that's why we've done this.
Thank you for that explanation. I wasn't aware of the broad issues that you just mentioned, but they're disturbing.
Yes, sir.
And I'm clear that this was previous administration.
Yes, and I will say, Councilman, if you'll allow me to, I did take great pains to indicate during the previous conversation at a council meeting that this relates to events that occurred before, largely before the prior administration took office, and so this is not focused on the present. It's focused on the recent past. Okay. But I think it's an investigation we need to conduct.
And I appreciate you guys being vigilant and recognizing and even been with the internal auditor to ascertain such information. But I'm going to say a statement, but I'm going to withhold if you're not comfortable with the response, and that is, it appears, even though the internal auditor identified these issues, somebody should have known about this. I mean, we're talking communication that was brought forward that we had opportunity to address. Is that right?
I will say that one of my acute concerns, and one reason I think we need to have an investigation, is I'd like to understand after these tax penalties that I've mentioned to you were incurred, what was the process from there? Did the person responsible for whatever actions resulted in the tax penalties being incurred take that up the flagpole and get instruction? Did he or she simply pay them and move on? What happened there? This was a real breakdown of controls for the finance department, and as I told somebody today, Councilman Bradford, if you can't balance your own checkbook and take care of your own finances, you can't do anything, whether you're talking about a household or an organization the size of the city.
Councilman Nicholson, thank you. I'm gonna await your investigation finding, and I think you would be, and trusting in, to identify what the breakdown was and can identify some of the human resources that was a part of the failure.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
All right. I have Councilman Green, and then the CAO may be able to answer some of the questions, but Councilman Green.
So Councilman, are you saying that the administration that just left, are you gonna call them in to state how they made this blunder and they did not do anything about it? Are you holding this administration responsible for it? Because the folk who were here when this happened, well, I mean, the mayor and all those folks, they gone. So therefore you got the mayor here. In fact, the whole city is thinking that they made all these mistakes. I had people calling me today to say, how did y'all let the mayor do all of that? Well, we just got here. This is just here. So therefore, if in this, you being a lawyer, did you see where anybody broke the law? And if they broke the law, then an investigation to me would go under the law enforcement doing investigation. As to the audit, what else is it that you would want them to find out? Because they've done all of whatever they've said. This is what happened, this didn't happen, and that didn't happen. So is there something else that the audit and finance is holding back? Or are there some other issues that, so once we come to the conclusion that all of this happened, will then you ask the police to go and arrest those other folk? What's the bottom line to this?
Well, I'll answer your first question first, Councilman Green. Of course, Mayor Perkins is not responsible for anything that happened before he took office. And the failure to file our taxes on time that I'm talking about happened before Mayor Perkins took office. So I'm not directing an investigation at the current administration for anything that happened before he came into office. And I just, because of some of the conversations and some of the feelings that have been expressed over the past several months, I want to make that clear. Certainly, if I thought there was a basis for an investigation of the current administration, I would not hesitate to request that, because that's part of my job as a member of the council, but that's not what this is about. You're correct, of course, that law enforcement, both federal and state authorities, have the right and the prerogative to investigate crimes, whether they happen at City Hall or elsewhere. I am not suggesting at this point that crimes have occurred, because I don't have information to suggest that they did. If the council conducts an investigation that indicates a criminal offense occurred, then I would think that one of the things we would do as a body would be to notify the appropriate law enforcement authorities and let them continue with their investigation, their process. But the council has an independent obligation to exercise oversight authority over the city's employees when that's appropriate. The charter contemplates that. And so I just want to get to the bottom of why some of the things that the external auditor has advised us about happened, and that is my purpose in sponsoring this legislation.
And so my last question is, do you think in your wise providence that you'll ever find out the why?
Yes, sir. If the principals that the committee interviews answer our questions honestly, and documents are provided as requested, I do think we will find out the why.
And then after we get the why, then where will we go from there?
I would think that would involve conversations with the administration, because of course the administration in the first instance is responsible for personnel management. But as you're aware, the charter also allows the council under some circumstances to take actions to remove city personnel if that's appropriate. I haven't made a judgment about that, but that's where I see this. That will be the process that we follow.
So my next question would be, just off the record or on the record?
It's all on the record in here.
It is?
You're on candid camera.
You can cut the deal. Y'all can. My question is the ultimate goal that you all, the three of you, is the ultimate goal to fire whoever y'all want fired, or is it just because, like I say, the accountability got to go to somebody?
Councilman,
And so-
oh, excuse me.
And so once, like I say, once you say, we've gotten to the why, and then there's an individual that's still here, say the others are gone, whoever was in charge, the boss, is gone. Once we get to the why, will the person that remain here be suggested getting fired?
What happens to any individual responsible for some of the failings identified by the external auditor will be, in the first instance, the decision of the mayor. I have every reason to think that he will take appropriate action. But the council, of course, has backstop oversight authority and theoretically could take action to remove a principal if a member of the staff, if that were determined to be appropriate. But I've drawn no conclusions whatsoever about that. That's not my objective. I just want to get to the bottom of some of the things that I heard from the external auditor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Councilman Green, I do have CAO Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's important for us to make sure that we state on the record that the audit is not yet complete. It is still in process, and we are trying to work with staff to get that completed as soon as possible. We've made sure that staff is diligently responding to the auditor's request, that information is getting to them timely. So we do need time to be able, and the resources for staff to be 100% on board so that we can get this audit completed as soon as possible. I also want to mention that the findings that were provided to the council, as well as the 3 that were mentioned in the resolution, are draft findings. They're not actual final findings, and after the administration has had the opportunity to provide its responses to the auditor and also to clarify our own internal procedures, I think some of those may not actually end up as actual findings in the final audit. I also want to just mention again, as I did before, that administration, we are on top of this. I've been spending hours with staff to make sure that going forward in 2019 that we are addressing the issues that have been mentioned. We do even take the draft findings from the previous administration seriously. And even before the draft findings were produced and before they were provided to us and to the council, we have been communicating about the workings within the finance department and how we handle things and our procedures, to the point that we have been working toward engaging the gold standard for government finances, which is the Government Finance Officers Association. And we are working with them so that they can come on board. They will do their own internal constructive investigation of all of the divisions within the finance department to discover and have conversations with all of our staff members, and to make sure that going forward we have a standard operating procedures and a manual to go by to make sure that we're operating in the most efficient manner as possible. I just want to make sure that I clarify that we have already been ahead of this. We have taken action on all of these items, and we have corrected or in the process of correcting them. We don't discourage this type of investigative work. I just want the council to know that we have started this process already. I understand the internal auditors have already been communicating with the finance department, getting information with them. As I understand, they do on a regular basis anyway, anytime they are looking for answers to information that they do find. The 3 items that are in this list, I do want to address each of those also, since they've been mentioned. Number 1 is concerning the quarterly payroll taxes. This is not something that's been a reoccurrence, and we have, first of all, addressed this with staff. Number 2, we have taken the auditor's recommendation to have backup staff who is responsible for this task month to month. They placed it on their calendar to make sure that you have more than just one person who is looking out to make sure that this is done on time. The second one is regarding the collateral of securities. And from what I understand, the report that the auditors pulled, the information that they are using to come up with this finding, was pulled on a specific date, and it was the last day of 2018, which of course we know during that time frame is when people are paying their taxes. So it is very likely in the end of the year for the city to receive millions of dollars of deposits at one time, and the bank needs time as well to be able to collateralize those assets. To go a step further, we have tasked staff to occasionally be looking at that and have it scheduled so that they are making sure that we have collateralized assets with the bank. For the third one, this is one that the city of Shreveport does not totally agree with, and we will provide that information within our report because bankroll reconciliations have been done on time. The concern with the audit is that they were not signed off and dated by the supervisor. And again, that's something that we have also addressed with staff going forward. So I just needed to make sure that those comments were made from the administration standpoint.
All right, Ms. Jones?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, if I may make a statement. I just want to caution administration and members of the council to be delicate when discussing findings from the draft audit, since that information is not subject to any public record.
Thank you, ma'am. Vice Chair Nichols.
I yield, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Councilman Green?
Yes, Ms. Jones,
Yes, sir.
on this resolution here, as you just outlined what you all have taken care of, then how will you all, if this passed, will this be a double audit? How will you all include this in what you've already corrected? Or will you have to go back? How will this fit into what you all are doing?
I have talked with staff about this and how this would affect their operations. As I mentioned, the internal audit has already been having discussions with them. This is not something that we discourage because we do, again, I always say I respect the work of our internal auditor. They're able to, watch our backs and, kind of look for stuff, when we're busy, doing the day-to-day. So we still want to proceed with our agreement with Government Finance Officers Association. I don't think that we need to delay that because it will give us an opportunity to receive some constructive feedback and not just, a slap on the wrist of what we've done wrong, but actually to give us guidelines and things that we can go by to be able to correct and actually give staff the ability and the empowerment to be able to correct actions going forward. So we will handle, if this does pass, we will, handle that administratively and, operationally to make sure that, we get both of them taken care of. We will cooperate fully.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, before this legislation was put on, did you have any communication with either of the council members as to saying, this is a problem, what do you plan to do about it or whatever?
Yeah, I spoke with Councilman Fleury at length. As a matter of fact, as soon as he left the meeting, he called me, gave me a heads up of what was going on, and we talked through, even more remedial actions that we would be taking as an administration. So yeah, I got a phone call and details right afterwards.
Yes, thank you, Councilman.
All right. Councilman Fleury.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to call the attention to the public that the audit committee is made up as me as chairman. The chairman Bowman is on there, Councilman Nicholson, Councilman Butcher, and this has really gone a little bit more than what I thought. This is nothing but an investigation. We haven't drawn any conclusions. We haven't made any statements and will not make any public statements. This is an investigation as to what went wrong and make sure that the administration knows it. Now, I wrote a letter to the Mrs. Jones, who, by the way, I remind you, my friend, was the deputy chief of CAO, and she probably has a lot of information. So she probably will be one of the ones that we want to talk to. But we haven't made any firm decision as to who did what, when, and where. That's what this investigation's about. We as councilmen must let the public know that we are looking into it. We were alerted of it. I alerted the mayor. The mayor took action. The one particular check that I believe was written in January has Mayor Perkins' signature on it. Well, the mayor has a automatic check signer. I'd want to know, did he know that somebody signed this check? I mean, those are things that we're going to ask. We're not trying to take over the auditor's job. It's only natural that we'd want to ask what went wrong in the city finance department. And the mayor can assure us, and Ms. Jones, that they are on top of it. They're getting it fixed. But gee whiz, the city council has a right to ask questions. Every time we bring up something over here, we get attacked because we're not doing our job. But we are. We're trying to be civil and work, but we have some problems in city government as to how it functions. And it's our job not to sit up here and talk all the time, but to do something. And we're going to investigate if this passes tomorrow. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Jones, would you proceed, please?
Under introduction of resolutions, Resolution 90 is authorizing the execution of a cooperative endeavor agreement between Caddo Parish 911 Communications District Number 1 and the City of Shreveport.
All right.
Under introduction of ordinances, Ordinance 83 is amending the 2019 Street Special Revenue Fund budget. Ordinance 84 is amending the 2019 General Fund budget. Ordinance 85 is placing a moratorium on the issuance of any occupational licenses and certificates of occupancy for payday agencies, title loan agencies, and pawn shops other than renewals.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, Councilman Bradford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I just want to have a little discussion regarding 85, Ordinance 85. Let me start by saying we know who utilizes these institutions, poor people. And I think the discussion in the Parish Commission meetings was how can we limit these agencies being in communities which they perpetrate upon the poor and the less fortunate who utilizes them. And adding a moratorium on limiting them, I'm not sure if that's going to be effective. I mean, there was several reports over the last, well, it hadn't happened in the last 20 years, but prior to the 20 years, there was several reports that was done really addressing, not necessarily addressing, but exposing the difference in the disparity in income and wealth of black and white Shreveport. It went on to indicate that certain things need to happen. I know some of what has happened over the last 15 years with us losing so many of our blue-collar industries and job opportunities is unfortunate. But still, the Montgomery report, the Chandler Chuse report, there was several other reports that said that if we do not, as a city, start addressing the disparity in wealth and income within our communities, consequences would follow. We are now almost at that level of consequences because the city is now majority black and poor. I mean, we know from the Alice report that 6% of our residents live on or below the poverty level, and if we took out all residents and just said African American residents, I think that number would even be higher. So, in my district, which is, I would consider one of the poorest districts in the city, dripping in poverty, dripping in disadvantage, very limited business opportunities, very limited jobs, high unemployment, and of course, liquor stores and petty loan stores. Now, my issue is this. And somebody said earlier, you know, in regards to investments, that we have had decades of not reinvesting in some parts of Shreveport. And I think that that issue could be expanded into some of the things that I'm saying. But my issue is this. If my cousin Vinny had 3 petty loan stores or pawn shops, and we put a moratorium that no more is to be added in Shreveport, now my cousin would be happy. It has been always my view that competition was good, and that competition would lessen things. The more competition, the lesser the price would be. And I don't know if that applies in this instance, but this is my question. And I don't believe, but again, we talked about this among some of us, that there are major things in legislation and there's minor. Okay, I consider this a minor one. I can go either way. It doesn't, because I don't think it's solved the problem. But I wanted to ask, if my cousin Vinny had 3 and we didn't license anymore to come into Shreveport, my cousin Vinny would be happy. He can get his license renewed. He can continue to operate with no added competition. And I don't know if that's good for the community, because they're going to continue to use these because of the poverty that exists in Shreveport. So if my cousin Vinny wasn't doing well on 70th Street and he wanted to move to MLK, does this law prevent him from relocating? We say no new one, but he's still in existence. He got a building that he want to move into because he think he can do better on MLK than he can on 70th Street. This does not prohibit him from doing that. So the movement of these operations, I think, would still be in existence. So I'm not clear on what this would accomplish. So, Council Lady, you want to sponsor? Can you help me understand what this would accomplish?
So,
Councilwoman Fulton.
thank you, Chair. Part of the issue is looking at our disparity and looking at the number of these types of businesses that exist. But what we are doing right now is working toward a collaboration with a request that came to us through resolution from the Caddo Parish Commission.
Sure.
And I respect the work and research that went into it and the diligence that Commissioner Jackson put into drafting that and sending it over to us. So what I think part of the issue is we are very limited in how much we can regulate these businesses. And this is one thing we can do that is a temporary stop that allows us to see what happens for 12 months. Part of the issue is a land use issue, though. I don't know that necessarily, that if you have that business license, that means that you can transfer the residents of it from Cedar Grove to MLK. I don't think that you can because of a land use issue. But I'm not the expert on that. Mr. Clark is, but I'm lucky that he just looked at me and shook his head, so no, I think I might be right. But beyond that, back in January, after we were sworn in, Councilman Nicholson and I met with the director of the Community Foundation to discuss disparity, to discuss predatory lending issues here, cash checking, and all the other ways that those services hurt our poorer neighborhoods. And we were looking for ways that we can legally help out our citizens who are actually making money but have very little means to actually get a hold of their money. And one of the things we were looking at is how can we impact things within the law, within our purview, but also are there ways that we can educate citizens so they can get a better handle on their money, because we do understand that these issues are so burdensome. Now, it might look like on the surface that we're just creating an opportunity for somebody to monopolize this, but we're already at a pretty high concentration. And I think Cousin Vinny is not gonna do any better or any worse than he's doing yesterday. So let's go let him and Marissa Tomei have their little fun, because that's the movie that Vinny's from. And it's not fun. I don't mean to make light of it. But the thing is, I don't think that we are going to see Cousin Vinny losing competition because Lucinda already has a payday loan venue down the street. We're just saying that Lucinda and Vinny can't open a third one on the same block for a year. Thank you.
Councilman Fleury.
Councilman Bradford, I know I kid you a lot about your cousin, but you know I do it in fun. Didn't Cedric and Councilman Green offer something to the citizens where they could come to the water department and cash a check? Did y'all put some type of legislation together with Cedric and did some kind of banking thing with the city? Do you recall that?
You saying, you saying, you asking me?
Well, you're a cousin to him, he's a cousin to you. I thought maybe y'all, one of you would speak.
What I'd like to do is refer to Mr. Thompson.
Yeah.
Did that happen, Mr. Thompson?
Bank city did something in the water
No,
under
sir.
Cedric's administration where
I was
they
not
could
here.
cash a check.
I was not here doing Cedric administration.
Oh.
I don't recall it, but we can look to see.
Huh?
I don't recall that, but we can look to see if we can.
I believe it was.
I just only served
It was
on the
something
council.
through Capital One, is what I was thinking about. That it was through, where they could cash it. If they didn't have a checking account or something like that is what I remember.
I was not-
I
was
just
not
asked
privy
about
to
that. Because the payday loans, they are, I got more than my share, but I just hate to see the pawn shops. But I understand what you're saying, it's a freeze for more like a year. Is that right, Councilman? Something about a year. Where are they gonna go? I mean, you know, if they dry up, where are they gonna go? But like I say, we'll know if it's a problem.
Well, I have, and I'll yield, but I do want to follow up with the conversation that I'm having as something that we can offer as alternative to these preparatory lending and finance charges that are blowing people out of the water. And I think in that year, and I would like to have a conversation with both of you, and what can we do to encourage alternative agencies that will be available to give small emergency loans at a rate that will not even compete with these outrageous preparatory loaning in petty loan institutions. So I'm just saying, within that year, there should be some type of action or some initiative to try to bring forward some solutions to this monster of a problem.
Chair, would you all mind yielding?
No, go ahead.
One thing that we can do is look at programs like the one that's at the Highland Center right now that's about to be displaced that actually helps people get on their financial footing. They offer like sort of like an ATM program and everything else that people that can't get banking accounts other places are able to bank with them.
Yeah.
And I think that there are some other solutions like that we should be looking at for our city, because once you know something's working and then that ends up being private enterprise, we just have to help people know where they can go. And I think that probably looking at groups like what's happening with the Highland Ministries and what's happening with United Way are good partners for us to start that.
Okay, claim my time back. The parish stripped out the pawn shops out of their resolution. And I think, in my opinion, that's kind of an overreach, including the pawn shops, because people do want to go and, you know, put jewelry and different things up to get a little cash. But I'd hope we'd think about that. I understand your need to slow the payday. They're even open on Sunday out there in my district. And your idea, Councilman Bradford, it was a brilliant idea. It just didn't get no legs on it about the churches coming together with a credit union type
That
thing.
conversation is still underway, Mr.
Is it?
Yeah, it's still underway, so
Okay,
I'm not
well, we'll keep
giving up on
praying
that.
about that.
Okay, yeah.
All right, Councilman Nicholson.
Councilman Bradford, one of the things I really appreciate about serving on the council with you these past 6 months is that you are a consistent and passionate advocate for the least among us in Shreveport. I think it's important that every time we sit up here together, we remember the people that you speak so eloquently about. And I agreed to co-sponsor this legislation because predatory payday lending does tremendous financial damage to the poor. And that you don't have to spend much time researching to know that. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. A one-year moratorium will give us the opportunity to have the conversations that you're talking about. What we will decide to do in that year, I don't know, but I think it's very important that we focus on this issue and that we, to the fullest extent possible, given our powers as a city council, constrain what really is a very harmful part of our financial system. Councilman Fleury, I do recognize that pawn shops play a different role than payday lenders and perhaps do not impose the same harms as payday lenders. I would like to see pawn shops included in this one-year moratorium, but of course I'll defer to the will of the majority of the council. I do hope that we can agree on a one-year moratorium for payday lenders because I think there is only upside for the poor from that. Thank you.
All right. Councilman Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I get into what I want to talk about, Councilman Fleury, you saying they come by and get a loan before they come to church? If that's the case, I wouldn't want to stop there. But anyway.
I got it.
But Mr. Chair, what I wanted to say is that, you know, we talk about the poor and whatever, but I think another point that we're missing out, it's not just poor people getting these loans. You got to understand they are professional people who have overloaded themselves and they just need to get some money until payday. That's because one, if who did you say?
My cousin Benny.
Cousin Benny is the owner, but then you may have cousin Zero can't get a payday loan because he don't have a checking account. So only folk with checking account can get a payday loan. You got to have some money in the bank. If we don't do anything about the economics in our city, to get folk raises and to get folk working and to get them making more money, then a moratorium is something that will be on paper and will make us feel good, but it's not going to solve the problem. We got to do more than just put it on paper and say, okay, wait, can't nobody else open up? But the percentage of the interest that the folk that's already doing and the other folk that's going to continue to go wherever they go is going to remain the same. Because if I can't get it in Councilman Bradford's district, they'll come to whoever, Councilman Fleury's district. So until we say, even with our city employees, until we get some money to help them to take care of their families and to do whatever, you know, we start here first, then we could put this in writing. We could say, I have top-of-the-line pawn shops in my district. They treat people right, and I support them. I'm not for any more pawn shops opening up in my district, but until we can give these folks some jobs and economics and raise and take care of business. Councilman Fleury was talking to me, Councilman Butcher was talking about how can we help the police department with getting more money. Getting more money is what we need to do. Need to concentrate on more than saying you can't open up another one of these businesses. Because if I got more money in my pocket, then I don't have to go get a loan. But it's not just poor people. These are professional people who have basically maybe when they should have bought a Volkswagen, they bought something else. Maybe Volkswagen, they high now. Maybe they should have bought another type car. Maybe they should have kept whatever. So that's basically more than saying you can't open another one. It's how do we put a program in place to say, okay, with the ones we have open, can you relieve these folk of, can you cut back, can you give them a free month's interest more than whatever we're doing now? I think if we would talk to them and say, okay, here Johnny Ray, and I hope nobody's offended, they don't want you to pay the loan off, they just want the interest. So how can we talk to these people to say, listen, you're making a killing, we need to have a conversation with them, how can you all treat the citizens of our city better? And that's basically what I think. We need to have a conversation with the ones that's already open and go from there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My last statement is, I told you about my cousin Vinny. Let me tell you about my cousin Jimmy.
Now, you saying Benny with a V or Benny with a B? Benny or Benny?
V.
Yeah, like the movie.
I ain't never heard of a Benny Bradford, but okay.
My cousin Jimmy wants to open up a petty loan store. I'm asking the city attorney to investigate and bring forward tomorrow. I can support this legislation, but I'm conscious that we are about to deny a business person from the opportunity to go into business. And I want to be clear that there's no legal challenges forthcoming. If it's a lucrative business, which it is, and you're denying me the right to, and deny me a license or deny me an occupancy permit, do cousin Jimmy say, you're not treating me right? I want to do business in your city, but you're not allowing me to do business, and therefore you are denying me to make a living. You're hurting my livelihood. I'm sorry, attorney. Is that a scenario that could pan out?
Wait, perhaps, I apologize.
You prepared to respond?
Well, no, but I would like to have any conversation of that nature off the record with the city attorney if she thinks that's appropriate.
That's fine. But she will be doing something that we require. Ask, okay? All right.
All right, Councilwoman Fuller.
Thank you, Chair. I want to just mention why that was a part of this.
I'm sorry?
I want to mention why pawn shops were a part of this particular legislation, and it goes back to the original commentary with Commissioner Jackson. I'm going to just read verbatim from his email, because I think that some of this is definitely the rational conversation, but some of it's a little bit emotional. It has come to my attention that the old Chase Bank at 332 East 70th Street, which has been a bank since the late 80s, was recently pursued a partnership between a local credit union and a neighborhood organization. However, I am told that Chase and its realtor have rejected that bid and accepted a bid from a pawn shop. So when those are the options on the table, that's when it kind of it turns my stomach. And it makes me think that maybe we are creating opportunities, or maybe we're creating an environment that is giving us a desert when it comes to opportunities, when we ought to be looking at ways of getting away from the banking desert.
Oh, listen, you have no argument for me on that part. Okay, I mean, my issue is simply, are we putting a Band-Aid on a shotgun wound?
Mm-hmm.
And again, the issue is so much different than what it was, 40 years ago. In the same communities that these institutions are now in, with black businesses,
Mm-hmm.
and that they were supporting and taking care of those individual communities. Very few black businesses are doing what is happening in those communities
Yes,
now.
sir.
And in response to my good friend Councilman Green, there are people that work at a nice job and go cash a $2,000 check at a payday loan. I mean, I've seen that happen too. But that ain't the people that I'm worried about. I'm worried about the poor people that are being taken advantage of and being perpetrated upon because they have no other option.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And I think that what we're doing, I think that we've got it's a two-reader, so we've got time to add to this conversation, make amendments that allow, or caveats as necessary to this.
Okay.
But this is not the stop of a conversation, it's not the end, it's the beginning.
And I appreciate that, and again, I want us to lead to some resolve.
Yes, sir.
Exactly. All right.
I hold my statement till tomorrow. Ms. Jones.
Ordinance 73 is amending the 2019 capital improvements budget. Ordinance 74 is amending the 2019 budget, funding contractual services provided to Sportran by Metro Management Associates, Inc. Ordinance 75, amending the 2019 capital improvements budget. Ordinance 76 is amending the budget for the general fund. Ordinance 77 is amending section 10-186 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Shreveport. Ordinance 78 is adding section 26-220, affidavit attesting that city contract was not secured through employment or payment of solicitor to Chapter 26 Finance, Article 6 Contracts, Division 1 generally of the City of Shreveport, Louisiana Code of Ordinances relative to requirement of an affidavit for city contracts. Ordinance 79 is authorizing the mayor to execute a lease agreement with the United States Department of the Interior, Fish and Wildlife Services to manage, operate, and use of C. Bickham-Dixon Park. Ordinance 80 is amending section 10-84 of chapter 10 of the Code of Ordinances relative to physical separation of sales of high alcohol content liquor for consumption off the premises. Resolution 81 is amending various articles and sections of the City of Shreveport Unified Development Code. Ordinance 82 is zoning C-24-19, an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the City of Shreveport Unified Development Code for rezoning property located on the southwest corner of East 70th Street and East Burt Coons Industrial Loop, Shreveport, Caddo Parish, Louisiana, from R17 Single Family Residential District to C2 Corridor Commercial District.
All right. There's no discussion on any of that?
Mr. Chairman. Councilman Butcher, now explain to me on ordinance 80, your amendment. Are you, give it to me where I can just boil it down.
Basically, due to a lot of public input and comments, when we started this whole deal, this was a roadmap basically for us to build upon. And we have got a lot of public comments. Basically what the amendment says is that to enter any store that sells high alcohol content only, or sells any other commodities like the steaks or whatever, you have to be 21 years of age to enter. So basically it's just taking that physical separation out of, for instance, somebody wanting to sell steaks or something like that. But to enter that store, they have to be 21 years old. So that will alleviate any grocery stores or anything like that. They will still have to have a separate entrance. So you can't just have shelves full of liquor in the same store as a grocery store.
Well, I'm puzzled because Austin, Texas, the state of Texas has H-E-B groceries, and in that grocery store, they have a section with no door, but it is a section of hard, liquor.
Well, we have that across the river too. Bossier City has the same exact thing.
I don't understand why we would make one business have an advantage over another business.
Councilman, I talked to several other council members, and I think that the only way that we can get this physical separation at least remedied a little bit is to do it like this. I don't know if we have the votes to not do it like this. The concerns that we're hearing is every dollar store in Shreveport will start carrying liquor, and children will be able to get it off the shelves. Like I said in the Public Safety Committee meeting today, this was a building block that was sent to us by the Shreveport Police Department. Of course, we're going to go with what the Shreveport Police Department tells us, but from what we're getting feedback is that people still want that separation. So this now, though, at least gives stores the opportunity to be able to sell something besides just hard liquor. If they want a meat and cheese store, they want to, at least we're able to do that. But the people that enter it have to be 21 years of age. So.
All right, and the camera that we talked about, and that doesn't have anything to do with it.
That's Councilman Nicholson's.
Yeah, that is a separate ordinance, Council.
Separate order.
Yes, sir. If there's nothing further, Mr. Thompson, do we have any tabled legislation to be removed from the table today?
Not that I'm aware of, Mr. Chairman.
We have one property standards appeal that we've already discussed. There are no ABO appeals today. There are no MPC or zoning board of appeals tomorrow. Are there any other appeals, Mr. Thompson?
No, sir.
Are there any reports from officers, boards, and committees? Will there be a clerk's report?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And finally,
Excuse me. Mr. Vice Chairman? Chairman, I would like to report from the Public Safety Committee meeting today.
Please.
We had a very constructive meeting. The school board was there. We spoke about the $75,000 for crossing guards. I feel like we got somewhere. There were, I want to say 5 or I think Mr. Settle probably knows the exact number. Seven school board members there. And 7 school board members, and there also was the superintendent and the director of security. So I feel like we had a very productive meeting. I think that the police chief presented a very good list of non-essential crossing guards that will eliminate almost $71,000 in yearly expenditures to the city. And I didn't see any school board members that really balked on that. So I applaud the work that the administration's done on this and the police chief, and I'm glad that the school board was there to start this conversation. So I want to go on the record in front of this body and tell everyone that I don't believe that any child will be in danger in Shreveport because of a lack of crossing guards. We are very diligently working with the school board to make sure that our children are protected. Thank you.
thank you, Councilman. We have an executive session scheduled for tomorrow concerning the
Chairman.
Excuse me, Mr.
I do have a note.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. Ms. Jones, the bond attorney, did you intend for the public notice to be read today or tomorrow?
Is tomorrow appropriate?
Okay.
Tomorrow for official.
Tomorrow, we will read a public notice concerning the proposed upcoming bond election. That must be read.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thompson. Our executive session for tomorrow concerns the Haven Property Owners Association Incorporated versus the City of Shreveport, suit number 610530, First Judicial District Court of Caddo Parish, Louisiana. If there's nothing else, this meeting is adjourned.
I need somebody to get that for me, because I'm a lazy and I just can't get it myself.
Mr. Settle.
Or we could leave it till tomorrow. I'll sleep until tomorrow. 'Cause I have
Mr. John Settle.